Welcome. Today's fanfiction is about what if Hinata was the sensei of Team 7 and how it affects the story, and link to the fanfiction is in the description as always. New Sensei Chapter 1. The story of Team 7 has many twists and turns. Team 7 in many worlds become an important team that ultimately shapes the history of the shinobi world. In the vastness of the endless possibilities in parallel realities exist outcomes that would be considered impossible. In most realities Kakashi Hatake is the sensei of Team 7. In some realities Naruto is on the same team as Hinata, whether he is on Team 7 or on Team 8. Very few realities is Sakura and Hinata on the same team. In this tale something different happened in this world. Someone that would be important to Naruto's life was born 6 years before he was. That's not all that is different about this world. One change in this world would have domino effects, and it all starts with the question what if? What if someone other Kakashi Hatake was the sensei of Team 7? In this world for many differences between this reality from the realities that exist in the vastness of the multiverse. It all starts with a decision made by the Hokage of Konoha that would change everything. Hiruzen Sarutobi looked over the dossiers of all the academy graduates. Under normal circumstances, Naruto Uzumaki would not have been allowed to become a ninja, but because of his role in saving the life of Iruka and protecting the village, he was granted his forehead protector. Despite having the lowest grades, Naruto is considered to have the greatest potential. He looks up to Sasuke Uchiha, the survivor of the Uchiha clan massacre. When he thinks back to that night 5 years ago, he feels nothing but disgust. There was nothing he could have done, as Danzo had so much power and influence with both the civilian and shinobi councils that it was nearly impossible for him to do anything. Then there was Sakura Haruno, who had lots of potential if she could get over infatuation with Sasuke. Her chakra control wasn't shown very often. Her role models, whom he didn't expect, were Hinata Hyuga. It was no secret she is popular with a lot of the younger girls at the academy. She was an inspiration to them all. So many of the Jonin despised her because of her reputation of being cold, just like a stereotypical Hyuga. He knew that's not what she truly was. Her true self she never showed anyone, ever since that tragic day 5 years ago. After what happened, her trust in people was gone. Her relationship with her clan was strained, and it had gotten worse in the past 5 years. There were those who felt she didn't deserve her position, as if she were being given preferential treatment because of her status as a Hyuga. Many of the Jonin could not stand her, believing the clan did not earn its reputation. He saw some truth in those beliefs, but Hinata was different. Her cold exterior was only a facade. She hadn't had the opportunity to be her true self because she hadn't trusted anyone in a long time. The team was originally going to be assigned to Kakashi Hatake. Hinata Hyuga was originally going to be assigned to Team 8. The newly promoted Jonin being assigned their own teams was a measure of good faith, showing a measure of trust. Hinata was originally going to be assigned to 8 Team. One of its members were her younger sister, Hanabi, whose relations with her clan were strained at this point, putting her on the same team as Hinata. It wouldn't be a good idea to do so. Hinata Hyuga wasn't ready yet to reconnect. It couldn't be forced. Then he looked at Team 7. Naruto Uzumaki could use a kind sensei to teach him. Sasuke Uchiha dislikes the Hyuga. Due to the two clans having a long and bloody history, only the Senju come close. There is a risk in having Hinata teach Sasuke, as she has a history with the clan because of Itachi Uchiha. Unlike other sensei who would be biased and focus primarily on Sasuke, ignoring their other students. Sakura Haruno, under Hinata's guidance, could change her focus from Sasuke to focusing on being a better version of herself. She has the potential, but she would need a teacher who could bring it out. Hinata, being that teacher, is a famous one at that. He would have to contact Kakashi and inform him of the change in plans. Kakashi, who has no interest in being a sensei, will likely not care one way or the other. He is doing it out of courtesy for the former Abu. Kurenai entered the Hokage's office along with her peers, Asuma and Kakashi. Like Hinata, Kurenai was a newly promoted Jonin. She wondered why Hinata wasn't in his office yet. Surely a team had been assigned to her by now. Kurenai is a fair-skinned woman of slender build. She has long black untamed hair reaching her upper back, and very unique eyes that are red in color, with an additional ring in them. She wears makeup consisting of red lipstick and purple eyeshadow. Her outfit consists of a red mesh armor blouse with only the right sleeve visible. Overall, this is very broad material which resembles bandages with a pattern on it similar to those of rose thorns. Her hands and upper thighs are also wrapped in bandages and she wears the Konoha forehead protector and regular shinobi sandals. Her boyfriend Asuma is tall man, with brown eyes, olive skin, short black spiky hair, and a beard. His clothing consisted of the standard Konoha ninja uniform with the sleeves rolled up halfway, flak jacket, regular shinobi sandals and forehead protector. He also wears a sash that had the kanji for fire marked on it around his waist, a pair of black bangles, and bandages wrapped around the arms of his sleeves. Kakashi, the silver-haired shinobi who is known throughout the shinobi world as the copycat ninja, wears Konoha's standard infantry clothing. A flak jacket, dark blue pants, and a long-sleeve shirt. He also wears fingerless gloves with metal plates on the backhand and is seen with a chain necklace underneath. His appearance remains largely the same. This appearance is pretty standard for what is expected from. The man looked at all three of his peers and spoke in an authoritative manner. As you all know, the team selections have already been decided, but some last-minute changes have required me to speak to Kakashi Hatake alone. And some changes have been made to two of the senseis. Kurenai Yuhi, instead of being assigned to Team 5 like you were originally, I'm assigning you to Team 8 because they are more suited to your talents. She wondered what he meant by that. It was a genjutsu specialist, and it was difficult to find a team suited for a shinobi with a sensei with such skills. They were rare. Isn't Hinata being assigned to Team 8? The woman asked him. Originally, she was, but I don't think Team 8 would be a good fit for her talents. I think you are far more suited for it. There are tracker specialized teams, and I think Hinata would be a lot better off with another team than Team 8. He was hiding something. There must be another reason why she thought that. Is there anything else you need, Hokage-sama? Asked Kurenai. No, the Hokage said, you and Asuma can go now. She walked out with her boyfriend and closed the door behind them. My old man seems to be up to his tricks again. Hinata for Team 7. Asuma smiled. Hinata, do you think she will finally open herself? She asked him. I don't know if I have to be honest. I hope she does, after what happened 5 years ago with that certain Uchiha. She hasn't been the same person since. She's been cold and ruthless. It's hard to believe that she was the little girl that we looked after when she left the Hyuga compound. She used to be so sweet and kind, but now she's unrecognizable. Kurenai said of the kind of person Hinata used to be prior to the Uchiha clan massacre. Well, I don't envy her. I certainly wouldn't want to be a sensei with a team that has Naruto and Sasuke. Asuma finished smoking a cigarette. Do you think history will repeat itself? Kurenai was curious about what her boyfriend thought about the likelihood of a repeat of Minato and Kushina. Who knows? It doesn't concern us, so we should focus on our own teams. She knew he was right, but she couldn't help but think that Naruto Uzumaki would have a huge impact on Hinata. Could that be the reason why the Hokage switched their teams around? If Naruto was anything like his father, he would be Hinata's sunshine, which is something she needs after what happened with Itachi. Kakashi was wondering what this was about. He was assigned to Team 7, but he had a feeling something was going to change. He could tell from his face that he had to tell him something. Kakashi, I know you were expecting to lead Team 7. Well, I've made some changes. Kakashi had a strong feeling this was not going to be something he would expect. It's not because of your skill qualifications that I'm switching you to another team. I have full confidence in your abilities, but it's just that I think Team 7 is a better fit for Hinata Hyuga than you. He figured that out before the Hokage confirmed what he suspected was the reason why Hinata wasn't here yet. Hinata was one of his students. He had taught her for many years, and he had taught her everything she knew. He greatly expanded upon her arsenal when it came to her skills. She combined her gentle fist with techniques that he had taught her, utilizing training that he had learned in his time in Rudabu. Kakashi was one of the few people who actually knew the real Hinata, not the facade she shows to others, cold and ruthless. Since that horrible night 5 years ago. I understand Hokage-sama, perhaps Team 7 will have a chance now that I'm not their sensei. Chuckled. His harsh methods resulted in every one of his students he's ever tested failing, being dropped permanently. Hinata wasn't like him, but she did have a similar outlook that he had, so their chances is only slightly higher. You're dismissed, Kakashi. The Hokage motioned for him to leave. Kakashi bowed respectfully and left. Little does the Hokage know the significance of this one decision and how it would affect the shinobi world. Oh, if it isn't the lioness out of all the people to promote to Jonin, it has to be her. I can't stand her, said a middle-aged man who was bald. Damn, Hyugas, and of all of them to promote, it has to be the princess from the Hyuga clan, said a woman who was in her mid-30s. Who recommended this girl? She can't be any older than 16, said a 50-year-old man who was balding. Hinata walked past them, not even acknowledging their presence. She couldn't stand them, they were so arrogant and stuck up. Everything they hated about the Hyuga clan, and more, she wanted to tell them often that she earned her promotion. She had worked hard for it, and she didn't get it through her connections to her clan. She went out of her way not to depend on her clan to get a promotion, though she could utilize it if she wished. They did nothing, the arrogant, incompetent. Most of these fools were stooges of the civilian council. Despite the title, they weren't a civilian council that consisted of civilians but former and currently active shinobi. The title was just a formality. It made her sick to see these kinds of people in charge. They're the reason why there's so many incompetent ninjas. The fact that there are so few of them as compared to what they should be, is a miracle. There are still enough of the idiots in charge. Those from Kakashi's generation weren't enough. Many of his generation were killed in the last war. He was a miracle that Hinata was even alive at all because she was a former student of some of these incompetent teachers who were criticizing her. She could teach the academy better with her eyes closed. She hated the civilian council. She hated everything about them. Everything that they were, everything they represented. No, she had to calm herself. She wasn't going to let these idiots ruin what was going to be her big day. She was going to be assigned to her own team. She was determined to train her team to be the strongest they could be. She wasn't going to be one of those foolish jonin who would only do the bare minimum. She would go above and beyond to make sure her students were ready and weren't just being sent out to the meat grinder. She was very close to where the Hokage's office was when she noticed Kakashi was walking towards her. Kakashi Sensei, Hinata wondered why he was here, not at the academy or at his usual place. We're being assigned a different team, I figured I'd let you know. Hinata wondered what he was getting at. Despite what Hinata appears in the outside and the inside, she was nervous. Being nervous was an understatement, she couldn't believe she was being promoted. She was so young compared to her peers. At 19, not many get promoted that young unless they're geniuses like Kakashi. She felt honored that she was being given this opportunity, even though she was only 19 and most people don't get promoted that young without connections. It angered her. There are many qualified individuals who deserved to be promoted but were relegated to being in inferior positions. Hinata wanted to change things. She wanted to become the Hokage in order to change things so those who have no connections through clans can be given equal opportunities and make it so promotions are based on merit instead of the current system where a person needs a recommendation from a jonin. Kakashi smiled at her, even though it was hard to tell with his mask on. Relax, you've been given a great honor, what are you nervous about? Kakashi asked her. I can't help but think that without your recommendation, I would never get this promotion at all. If I'm allowed to speak freely, Kakashi-sensei, why can't we have everything done based on merit? Why does it have to be a recommendation-based system? I hardly consider that fair. There are other people who deserve this position as much as I do, if not more. Kakashi took some time to reply, I agree with you. Unfortunately, there are many in the civilian council who do not want the system to change. Hokage-sama has been trying to reform Konoha for a long time, but has not had any results. Unfortunately, the old guard do not want to see things changed. Kakashi said to his former student. Hinata responded angrily but didn't raise her voice. No, they don't. The only way things could change is if I become the Hokage. I will have things done based on merit. I think Hokage-sama doesn't have much of a backbone, he can get anything done if he wants. He's the Hokage. Hinata said with frustration. She was never able to voice it with others because of being reprimanded if she did. I'm afraid it's not that simple, Hinata. Don't forget there's also the daimyo, whose authority exceeds that of the Hokage. Even if you were to become Hokage, Hinata, things wouldn't magically change. It's easier to think that when you haven't been in that position. Kakashi pointed out an unfortunate fact, another thing Hinata hated. I can Understand your frustration, which is why I gave you the recommendation along with Kurenai and Asuma. We believe in you, and we think you're more than capable of leading your own team. You've led your teams on many missions before, I believe you're ready to have a Genin team. Though, I take it you're going to give them a hard test first. I'm not like you, Sensei. I have my own way of testing. As much as I want to, I can't just fail them without seeing if they're worth my time. Kakashi couldn't help but chuckle. On how much their values are similar, with one difference though: Hinata isn't as cruel as Kakashi. She will at least give her team a chance to prepare. From her look at Kakashi, she could tell he was proud. She could also tell he was proud because he may not have been her teacher when she was a Genin, but after she was promoted to Chunin, she went on many missions with Kakashi. She sees Kakashi more as her sensei than her original, who was killed on one of their missions together. He taught her everything she knows, he pushed her, and believed in her, making her see in herself what he saw in her. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei, for believing in me. I won't disappoint you. Kakashi kindly put his hand on her forehead and spoke softly. This won't be easy. Whether your first team fails or you pass, it won't change this fact. Whatever your peers think about you being too young, ignore them. I was younger than you when I was promoted. You have proven yourself time and time again to be a responsible ninja. If it were up to me, you would have been promoted sooner. Remember the lessons I've taught you. She remembered them well. Those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. She held these beliefs deep in her heart. They were her values even before she met Kakashi. She gave Kakashi her farewell and headed to the Hokage's office to get a dossier for the team she would be instructing. She bid farewell to her former mentor and headed to the office. She couldn't help but wonder who she was teaching. Part of her hoped she'd be able to keep her promise to Kushina Uzumaki in an ideal world. In that world, Naruto Uzumaki would be her student, so she could both fulfill her promise to her mother figure and teach the boy how to be a proper shinobi. She hushed the voices of people in shock at seeing Hinata, someone they thought looked like a 16-year-old Jonin. She was getting tired of these looks. I'm 19, damn it, she wanted to scream but held herself back. She wasn't going to reinforce what they think. If she washed out, they would only be proven right. Yes, her face looks younger than a woman her age, but she has the body of a woman. She's not a girl, and it pisses her off. After passing by everyone, she opened the door to the Hokage's office. The old man she knew all her life, who was probably the closest thing she could think of as a grandfather, smiled warmly at her. He was there when she got her promotion, which happened yesterday. It caught her off guard when it happened. The previous day, Hinata was doing her usual training routine. She did not have her vest on. She was in almost nothing but her undergarments. She loved training like this. It was like walking on water. She felt completely free. Her body flowed as fluid as the water itself. There was a splash. She was like a dancer. She moved her legs in an elegant and fluid motion. She moved her hips in smooth motion. This was not the kind of training she did to make herself stronger. She did it to make her relax, to relieve stress. She always did this after she completed a mission. Her mother taught her this when she was a girl, when she struggled to focus. Konichi had a lot expected from them. They were expected to use their bodies as weapons to subdue men. Hinata had to use this on multiple occasions, though she hated it. This exercise was also a way for her to keep herself in shape. She did this every day when she wasn't on a mission. This was also used as a way to test any sort of techniques that she taught herself. Any pervert that even tried to spy on her in her training sessions paid a heavy price. She gave them a broken nose and cracked ribs. She didn't like being looked at as a piece of meat because that's what most men look at her as. Last mission made her sick. It was so degrading. She thought her talents are being wasted. She should already have been a Jonin, not wasting her talents on missions with people who are far better at using their charms and their seductiveness than she is. She jumped in the air as far as her legs would carry her. Her body sped rapidly as she practiced her plan's rotation jutsu, a defensive technique that she used, a water variant of it. She was one of the rare users of lightning and water, completely opposite natures. She had never used any of her skills that she's currently using. This training session in combat, there was not a situation where there was a need for it. After she was done, she landed again on the ground. She was going to get to the final point of her training, the lion fist. 2 blue auras formed around her arms, the one technique that she had that was completely her own. She practiced her techniques that she had used earlier with the lion fist. They were far more powerful and far more deadly. It was not a technique she used often, but she had to keep practicing with it. She didn't acquire them until she was 14. The day no, she doesn't think about that. It's a powerful technique regardless of how she acquired it. Visualizing an imaginary opponent, she struck in the air, imagining the opponent that she would be killing with her technique. It was powerful. The lion fist was a jutsu that used up a lot of chakra. It was a difficult technique to master. Only a master of the gentle fist is capable of using such a technique. The fools in her clan disregard her like trash despite the fact that nobody can use this technique. It would be funny in a way if she didn't feel such disdain for such arrogant, stuck-up, good-for-nothing elders, most of whom have never set foot outside of Konoha. When she was done with her final attack, she dispersed the lion fist. She went to where her clothes are and got dressed. When she's about to put on her vest, Kakashi appeared before her. "You better not have watched everything I did, since say I don't tolerate peeping toms even from you," she said, her voice cold as ice, which made Kakashi sweat. "No, actually I just, well, never mind." Stopped, not wanting this conversation to get awkward. Hinata came with me immediately to the Hokage's office. His tone of voice, the way he was saying it, something important must be happening for her to be summoned to the Hokage's office. That rarely happens. All right, whatever this is, it has to be something really important. Hinata finished getting dressed and headed to the destination where the Hokage office resided. Hokage office. Hinata opened the door and then saw Kakashi, Asuma, Kurenai, who was recently promoted guy, and a few others. Everyone I'm here was one of her teachers at one point. Could this be? No, it was too good to be true. Hinata Hyuga, after much consideration I have decided to promote you to Jonin due to the recommendation at least 3 Jonin. Congratulations Hinata, you are now a Jonin. The Hokage smiled. Hinata's mind went blank. No, this was too good to be true. This had to be a trick. She hit herself to make sure she's not dreaming. You'll be assigned to a team tomorrow. Get some rest Hinata, you'll have a long journey ahead of you. Smiled warmly at her, the same smile that she remembered when she was a little girl when she cried after her mother died. Thank you for this honor, Hokage-sama won't disappoint you. The Hokage's office. The present. Here is your team. The Hokage of Konoha gave her the list. She was familiar with 2 of the 3 students. She couldn't believe it. Naruto Uzumaki. There wasn't anyone who didn't know him. The village hated him. Hinata had no idea why. When she asked the question, she was told it was classified information. She felt empathetic for the boy. He didn't deserve the treatment that he had been getting for the past 13 years. She was conflicted. She wanted to keep her promise to the boy's mother, but she couldn't just simply pass him because of that. It wouldn't be fair to the rest of the team. Up until this point, she was unable to keep her promise to Kushina. She was barred from doing so, but now that she's a Jonin, they can't stop her. The civilian council can kiss her ass as far as she's concerned, but she would have to see it if he's even worth training at all, regardless of her promise. Sasuke, she knew, would be difficult due to a traumatic event that he suffered 5 years prior, seeing his entire family murdered. When she looks at him, she cannot help but feel intense hatred for him. The resemblance to his older brother was uncanny. Nobody can understand why, and she doesn't want to tell anyone. No one knows. He wasn't fair to hate Sasuke. He wasn't Itachi, but she still couldn't stomach the thought of teaching someone like him. The resemblance was too much for her to bear. She buried that deep inside. She wouldn't think about him, the man who took her heart out and ripped it out. She pushed away the memory of Itachi and focused on the last student she was going to teach, assuming they passed their final exam. Sakura was one person. She was perplexed as to why she wanted to be a ninja, all because of a boy. She was groaning. She would be someone. She would have to have more patience than she ever thought would be possible. She couldn't stand spoiled brats. From what she'd heard about Sakura's upbringing, she hadn't really suffered in her life. She was pretty sheltered. Though when she looked deeper into her profile, she did spot that she had talent when it came to genjutsu and chakra control, and Hinata couldn't believe this. It was difficult. She wanted to dislike the girl but couldn't completely dislike her because of how much potential the girl has, and she wastes it with her infatuation with Sasuke. It pissed her off seeing someone with such talent focusing it solely on a boy. The Hokage looked at Hinata and spoke, knowing that she wasn't pleased with one of the people on her team. I have my reasoning for putting Sakura on Team 7. I know how you feel about sheltered and spoiled children, but she has the highest grades, and by the rules of the academy we have to put students based on their performance. She understood this, but it still didn't make her happy having to have someone like her on her team. Well, it wasn't a guarantee thing. I have faith, Hinata, that you'll be a great sensei, and I have faith in the students that they'll succeed. She heard this from Kakashi. She wished she could feel that herself. If she failed her first team, it would make it seem like it wasn't worth Kakashi's time or effort to recommend her or her other colleagues, but she couldn't let them pass either. If they were to die because of a bad decision she made, it would badly reflect on her. Newly promoted Jonin had much higher expectations placed on them than their more experienced counterparts for doing the same job. She wished it wasn't that way, but that's the reality of how things are now and not how things she would like them to be in the future. I'll be heading out. Hokage-sama. Hinata, being respectful, left, determined to make her mother proud. I'm getting closer to my dream. Please watch over me. Hinata said this to herself as she headed to the academy. Little did she know how much meeting Naruto would change her life. Naruto got up from his bed. It was a long week from getting his headband until today he was in his pajamas in his rundown apartment. It was nothing special, it was the bare minimum that was required until he was old enough to be able to fend for himself and to be able to start earning money of his own. He looked at his clock and then freaked out. He only had 30 minutes to get to the academy. Naruto said out loudly. He quickly went to his closet and got into his signature blue and orange jumpsuit, and then took out his headband that was given to him by Iruka. He went to his pantry for any snacks that he managed to take from the bargain market. It wasn't much, it was just fruit jelly that he managed to get for a bargain price. Even though he had some rice bars as well, it wasn't much, but it was better than not eating anything at all. He ate on the way to the academy, jumping from building to building, until he ended up pissing off some of the pedestrians he had passed by. An elderly woman said, "That brat is a ninja. Are you kidding me?" A man he had run into as he was running rapidly to the academy told him to watch where he was going. He couldn't let these people get to him. He would prove them wrong and become the Hokage, proving to them that even a dead last like him could become the leader of the village. He was at the academy grounds. He couldn't help but look around at this place. He had gone here for many years. He looked at the place where he frequently stared at Sasuke. He had lost every single duel. Nobody ever cheered for him. Everyone rooted against him as far as he could see. He hated this place. He was glad that this was the last time he would ever visit the academy. He walked into his classroom, which he had attended for the last 6 years. Everyone was surprised to see Naruto there, as he had failed the Genin exam. Only those who graduated are allowed to be here. Why are you here, Naruto? Asked one of the students, Kagome, who looked annoyed at him. The long-haired girl with brown eyes, who wore mostly green and black, always carried a sword on her back, even though it wasn't usually done today. However, she would be allowed to carry a sword. Never liked her, he always found her insufferable, even though she wasn't a Sasuke fangirl. Everyone was here that he had went to school with since the academy days. Hyuga girl who is named Hanabi, she has short brown hair and wore boys' clothes. Out of all the girls other than Hanabi, Kagome was the most serious when it came to being a Konichi. They didn't compare it to Sakura, but he saw his crush, who was beautiful, so he thought her long, silky pink hair. In his fantasies, he imagined Sakura becoming his girlfriend. He looked at Sasuke, who had an intense glare. "Dope," Sasuke said loudly enough for Naruto to hear. "Tame," he said back. The tension between the two boys was high, they never liked each other. Naruto wanted to smack Sasuke and knock his arrogant ass down. "Show some respect," Sakura said, annoyed with Naruto. "Oh, Sakura-chan, I was wondering if you'd like to go out with me." Sakura signed in annoyance. "Naruto, I'm going to say this so even an idiot like you can understand, I'm not interested. Stop asking me. I'm not going to go out with you. I've never been interested and I never will be. Now stop bugging me and let me go to Sasuke-kun." She walked right past him, acting like he didn't exist. He didn't know why, but something about the way she said that made him angry. What does she see in Sasuke? It makes him so mad. Iruka appeared, and his thoughts could go no further. "Okay, now listen up. You're not children anymore. Your childhood ended as soon as you got your headbands. Now sit down and listen as I announce who your teammates are going to be." Iruka started to read out the teams one by one. None of them stood out to Naruto. Team 1 through 4 were nothing to write home about. Team 5 consists of Kagome Takahashi, Toma Kamaru, and Kanji Haga. They're definitely not going to make it. Kagome's face was pale, she was so fucked. Considering how incompetent and lazy her teammates are, a stroke of bad luck. Naruto looked at Sakura, who looked sad at Kagome. He didn't understand why. He ignored it because Team 6 wasn't notable, and he would likely forget them by the end of the day. The next team he was sure would be something special. Team 7 will consist of Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto was excited at last, he wanted to know who his other teammates were. He hoped it wasn't Sasuke or, he was okay with Sakura, even though she had hurtful words earlier. He didn't mind being on the same team as her. Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto wanted to curse, fuck. He wanted to say this out loud. The last one would be a girl. I knew it for sure, it would have to be Sakura. There would be no one else but her, and he certainly doesn't want Hanabi. Sakura Haruno. Sakura squealed, she was happy that she was on the same team as him. He didn't know if he was happy or annoyed, maybe a little bit of both. All the other teams were announced. He was annoyed. He was happy, but at the same time, Sasuke was on his team. Why do I have to be on the same team as that bastard? Naruto muttered to himself, annoyed that everything was almost perfect. Anyone would have been better than Sasuke, whose smug and arrogant expression was always on his face whenever he outperformed others in exercises and exams. Naruto hoped that they wouldn't get stuck with a teacher who was unreliable and always showed up late. Luckily for him and his team, they wouldn't have to wait long before a woman entered the room. The way she carried herself was with confidence. She had long dark blue hair and her eyes were white, with a slight tint of lavender. Her attire was colored purple, her shoulders were exposed, while her waist was black. Her attire, as a whole, was something that was standard for kunoichi. What surprised Naruto the most was her figure. She also had a slender, curvaceous figure. Her skin was fair. When Naruto looked at her face, there was a kindness to it. Naruto was speechless. He had no words, for his previous disappointment with Sasuke had vanished along with Sakura's latest rejection. He didn't know what he was seeing. Was she even human? Was she a goddess? To Naruto, she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. When he heard her speak, she spoke kindly and smiled at the team. The woman spoke softly, I'm Hinata Hyuga, it's a pleasure to meet all of you. I hope we can all get along. Not only was she physically beautiful, but her voice was too. Naruto was caught in a trance. Let's go and introduce ourselves, let's go somewhere that's more comfortable. The team followed her. Naruto couldn't help but think that Hinata's beauty was beyond comprehension. Any thoughts of Sakura vanished from his mind. Holy shit, did we just see? Naruto's mouth drop to the ground when he saw that Hyuga. Ino, perplexed at how quickly Naruto got over his crush on Sakura, said, wow, just great. Now Naruto will go from simping for Sakura to this Hyuga. What a drag, remarked Shikamaru, who just wanted to get these long and tedious introductions over with. Lucky bastard, said another boy at the talk of Hinata Hyuga. Not fair, that loser gets to be the student of the Lioness of Konoha, said one of the girls, clearly a fan of Hinata Hyuga. A lot of admirers with girls in the academy and a bunch of horny fanboys. Ino was convinced that most of these people would wash out, she wouldn't have to see them again, and she couldn't stand them. She heard all how attractive Hinata Hyuga was, which drove her crazy. Yes, she admired Hinata because she was both strong and beautiful. A rare combination, most ninjas only have one or the other, not many of them can be both beautiful and strong at the same time. Very few of them can be like Tsunade. She wished she could be on their team. She'd love to have someone like that, as her sensei, but she looks at her sensei, who has olive skin and smokes a cigarette and looks amused. Come, let's introduce ourselves. Asuma smiled and said, oh, great. She thought. Another Shikamaru. This wasn't going to be something she'd hate. She gradually went with her team to do what was expected of her and followed a family tradition. Naruto took a deep breath. It was very difficult for him to concentrate on this woman in front of him, the way she carried herself, the way she walked, the way she moved her hips. He couldn't help but let his imagination wander. No other woman had ever compared to her. It was like being in the presence of a literal goddess. What the hell? It was as if she had been sent from heaven to bless him. What did he ever do to deserve such a beautiful woman? Sakura couldn't compare to her, it wasn't even close. He was eager to impress her, what he heard about Hinata Hyuga, what he heard about her beauty. He thought it was just an exaggeration, but when he saw her in the flesh, he realized she couldn't compare to Sakura. His face was a deep shade of red, it was almost as if a nuclear bomb were going off. That's how deep red his face was. He had no idea how to deal with being around such a beautiful creature like Hinata Hyuga. She didn't just have a sexy body but also a cute face. The best of both worlds. He had to stop thinking perverted thoughts before she noticed the last thing he wanted her to think was that he's a pervert. Sasuke was irritated. He was expecting an experienced Jonin. This woman couldn't be any older than 17 or 18 tops. Why is it someone so young? Of all the people, it had to be a Hyuga. What a joke. She's just a stepping stone to his true goal. He doesn't like her because he doesn't like Hyugas in general. He thought they were arrogant and stuck up, and thought they were so much better than everyone else. He had never met any of them that he liked. He thought they were all the same, acting like they were superior to everyone else. They are among the most vain and arrogant people he has ever encountered. He recalls how much his parents disliked dealing with the Hyuga. A rumor that turned out to be false is one he remembers, but not because he believes it. Of course, Itachi's girlfriend wasn't from the Hyuga clan. He refused to believe it, even if others might have wasted their time with someone like Itachi. Still, he doesn't have fond memories of them. He even recalls how he was treated before and after the Uchiha clan massacre by members of the clan. They acts like royalty, and thinks they owns the place, and it's another reason why he holds the clan in contempt. When the Uchiha clan still existed as an entity, they never got along with the Hyuga. To him, they were all the same, he couldn't stand them. She is only a means to an end. Sasuke thought to himself. Sakura was excited because Hinata Hyuga would be her sensei, she couldn't help but think Hinata was cool. Things couldn't get any better than that. There weren't many Konichi who did anything of note. She knew about Hinata's reputation as the lioness of Konoha, and having her as her sensei was like a dream come true. She would finally be able to pursue her dream of being on the same team as her idol and someone that she greatly admires. She squealed, not knowing how annoying this was to Sasuke and even to Naruto. She never thought in her wildest dreams she would ever be a student of Hinata Hyuga. She was so cool that she was everything Sakura wasn't. The unfortunate thing is she has to play the part of desiring Sasuke, but that was okay. The idea of being trained by this woman was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She couldn't believe she was being granted this opportunity. She worshipped Hinata like she was a goddess. It would be great if Naruto weren't on their team. She can deal with his annoying presence, though. With Hinata as the sensei of her team, she can deal with him and play the part of being infatuated with Sasuke. Hinata looked at her students, nervous beyond belief. This was her first time leading her own team of genin. She knew she had to work even harder to prove herself, especially to the Uchiha boy who didn't think she was old enough to be a leader. She also knew that people wouldn't take her seriously if they thought she didn't present herself as a woman instead of a girl. She spoke in a soft-spoken, authoritative voice. Since we're starting to get to know each other, I think it would be a good idea if we told a little bit about ourselves. Her team was looking at her with curiosity. They knew she was going to give a little bit about herself first. My name is Hinata Hyuga. In my likes are guarding, reading cinnamon rolls. My dislikes are bullies, bigots, and those with no respect or regard for others. My dreams, I don't think I'll discuss them at this time. She said politely, I don't think I'll discuss them at this time. Her students hadn't passed her test. She didn't like to give too much information to strangers. She looked at Sakura, wondering if this girl took it seriously. She didn't understand what the Hokage was thinking of putting her on this team. Holding her tongue for now, she let Sakura speak. My name is Sakura Haruno. I love to look pretty and I love to do my hair. Hinata almost wanted to tune out. What the hell was this girl doing? She was more concerned about her appearance than she was about being a ninja. I also really like Sasuke-kun and would like to. Hinata tuned the last part out. She had enough, she didn't want to hear the rest. This girl was shallow. Sasuke didn't look like a man of many words, she could tell from his demeanor that he had nothing but contempt for her. He spoke in a quick and divisive manner, not wanting to say too much. I don't have many likes or dislikes. My dream is to revive my clan and kill a certain man. Hinata understood what he was talking about. She also hated the man that Sasuke wants to kill. She looked at Naruto, who reminded her of his parents, people who had been important to her. The way he presented himself was like someone with confidence in his dream, another reminder of his mother. I am Naruto Uzumaki. My hobbies are cooking ramen and finding new ways to make it better. The thing I hate is waiting for the ramen. What she knows about Naruto's life, she can understand why Naruto would have these hobbies, she couldn't hold it against him. She does wonder why the Hokage didn't give him better living accommodations. It perplexed her. She would get to the bottom of it one way or another. What she heard next intrigued her. My dream is to be the Hokage, but I have another dream. I prefer not to discuss it now. Naruto's dream of being Hokage was no secret, but his other dream she set that aside for now. If they successfully passed her test, she would learn about it later. The next part, that she would say she knew would infuriate the team, but she had no choice. This test was required to see if any of her students were ready. Many of my peers are testing their students today, but I am going to be lenient and give you 1 day's time to prepare. Tomorrow is a test. If you pass, you will pass your final test. If you fail, you'll be sent back to the academy. The last part Hinata lied about. She wasn't going to tell them this test was testing if they would become ninja at all. They weren't officially genin, this was the final test of the genin exam. She didn't want to fail any of them, but she had her orders and she had to do her duty. She couldn't disgrace Kakashi, he recommended her. She couldn't disappoint him. Naruto asked a question, though from the way she could tell, the way he was speaking it was in the most respectful way possible. This was out of character for Naruto. Something was wrong, but Hinata wasn't complaining. Sensei, didn't we already pass all of our tests? Why do we have to do this? Naruto asked her. This was expected of all the students, so they asked this question. She was told by Kakashi that he would patiently explain to Naruto and his team. Because we have to make sure you're all prepared for the real dangers of being a ninja. It's dangerous work, you can get killed. We have to make sure that you have what it takes. We don't like to send people to get killed needlessly. Things will only get more difficult from here if you can't pass the final exam. You won't be able to do the more difficult things that are required. Naruto looks as if he understands the answer. I will pass. Believe it, Naruto said with confidence. She couldn't help but find it endearing. Get some sleep and remember to be here by 8 a.m. Come prepared, this is the hardest test you have taken so far. If you are not serious, don't come. Hinata warned. That's not what she was advised to do, but her methods aren't like her teachers. She is going to teach in her way to see if they're worth teaching. She bid them farewell as they headed home. Hinata decided to head home to her own apartment and prepare for tomorrow. She hopes they pass. She doesn't want to be the one who destroys their dreams. Kakashi was watching from his vantage point. Even though he wasn't taking his team, he couldn't help but observe his student. She was curious about how she was going to use his technique. Despite her kind demeanor, Hinata, when she was on a mission or when she was on a team with others, could be cold and heartless. Naruto and his team would be in for a rude awakening, especially Naruto. From what he observed when he saw his reaction to seeing Hinata seemed to have developed a crush on her. Hinata's she already had his respect, this was good, and Sakura too. Sasuke would be a problem. He was looking forward to seeing how Hinata would perform or fail her students. He could imagine being in a different world, where he would be teaching these kids. Maybe he wouldn't indulge in what-if scenarios. Kakashi couldn't help but think about it. So he can't help but think about the possibility of being there. He would be testing another team, he was confident that they would fail. Only one member of the team was worth anything. He looked at Kagoma's skills in her dossier. Perhaps she was a waste to have her talents go to waste. Could he find a way to utilize her talents? But that's only if there are any openings happening. It doesn't happen often, but there are times when 1 or 2 team members are dropped, especially if they were found inadequate. Well, he would find out one way or another the next day. He picked up his book and decided to read it. He was eager to find out what happened in the next chapter of Ika Ika Paradise. He was eager to read the next chapter so that he could find out how this latest book in the series would end. Hinata had no idea why she was being summoned by her father, she had to meet her team at the training grounds. She was the last person she wanted to talk to, but she couldn't refuse his summons. When she was summoned, I can't refuse. She sat in the position she was trained as a child. Her father looked at her. He casted the sound seal jutsu so their conversation couldn't be overheard. So, you've been promoted to Jonin. You've been assigned to a team. Her father asked with no emotion. Yes, I have. Is that such a shock, Hiyashi-sama? Hinata said, not caring that she disrespected her father. He did not deserve her respect as far as she was concerned. Not after what he said that night, he lost that right. The night her mother died. Even after all this time, you still refuse to call me, father. He asked her in a tone that was difficult to tell if he was angry or sad. She didn't care. I don't have time for this nonsense. Stop playing games and tell me why I'm here, she said, barely containing her anger. Who are you teaching? So that was the reason. He didn't care. He rarely talked to her, except once or twice a year, since the day her mother died. You can look it up yourself, I don't need to tell you, she said, with a venomous malice towards her father. I would rather hear it from you, he said coldly. The two couldn't be in the same room anymore without it involving a fight. Fine. She gave her father the dossier that the Hokage had given her. He looked at it, he seemed impressed for what she could see in his eyes. If you successfully train these three, it will look good in our clan. Don't fail. Her father saw her as a disappointment, and he believed by default that she would fail, despite the fact that she had been promoted and was now commanding her own cell. Unless you have a reason to keep me here, I have a team to test. She got up, turned back on her father, but not before he said one last thing to her. You cannot run away from who you are, Hinata. You are a Hyuga. You are the Byakugan princess. Do not forget that. They turned her back on him. She would not let whatever had happened just now make her lose focus. She had a team to test, so she put her anger and bitterness about her father's clan aside right now. Her priority was to see if Team 7 was worthy of her time. Naruto was excited but also nervous because he had to pass in order to become Hokage. He was surprised that he was already there before anyone else. It was only half an hour until the exam started, so Naruto ate breakfast while waiting. When he finished, he saw Sasuke appear and Sakura nearby. Sasuke was the last person Naruto wanted to see, and Sakura was someone he didn't know how he feels about her at this point. Before he could think about anything, Hinata appeared in front of them. She had a serious look on her face, the same kind of look he saw the previous day, which was gone, replaced by a cold and calculating expression. She spoke in a cold manner. It's good that you all showed up on time, and from the looks of it, you're prepared. Good. Naruto didn't understand what happened to the previous kind voice he had heard. Was that real? He disregarded it for the time being. He saw Hinata take out 2 bells. What was the point of this? What did this have to do with their final test? The real test begins. Prove to me that you can get the bells, but know this, one of you will be sent back to the academy, and if you want any chance in getting them, you better take me seriously. Go at me as if you're trying to kill me. Naruto saw the look on her face. It was serious. He wasn't familiar with Hyuga's fighting style, but he knew he couldn't fight her up close. Naruto decided to test some new techniques. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto created an army of shadow clones. There were hundreds of Naruto appearing before Hinata. What do you wish for us to do, boss? Said one of his clones. What do you mean? Attack? What the hell do you think I want you to do? Part of a solenoid with one of his clones asking such obvious questions when they get there to simply look at what's in front of them. I don't know, boss. I'm uneasy. I mean, this person we're up against, she is so a. Naruto punched the clone to make him shut up. Focus on the damn fight. Irritated that he was hit, he reluctantly did as he was told and charged towards Hinata. There were other skills he wanted to try, but he'd never had a chance to practice them properly. Shadow Clone, Wind Explosion. Naruto did the appropriate hand signs that caused shadow clones to explode like a suicide bomber, making everyone look at him like he was crazy. What the fuck, Naruto? Sakura said, angry that Naruto used such a dangerous technique. Naruto looked to see if it did anything to their sensei, but she looked like she was unharmed. Naruto couldn't believe it, that had to work, there was no way. Sasuke charged at her, doing his hand signs, and used the tiger seal and unleashed his clan's signature jutsu. Fire-style fireball jutsu. A fireball was about to hit Hinata, but she blocked it with a strange-looking rotation jutsu. Naruto was amazed. She was strong. She was awesome, but Naruto had to put those thoughts aside. He couldn't think about that now. He threw a smoke bomb and created more shadow clones. He had to blend in. He charged along with his clones, who punched and kicked and threw shuriken, every weapon they had at their disposal. Hinata disarmed them all. He was going to try another jutsu, but before he can do anything, before he can do the hand signs, her eyes change in shape. She had veins. Then she saw him and hit him instantly, which caused all the clones to disperse. He tried to do another jutsu, but he couldn't use his chakra. He was completely confused. What was going on? What the hell just happened? Naruto is down for the count. He had no interest in helping him. He was here for only one reason: to avenge his family and clan. He cared nothing for whatever this ridiculous test was. He took out wires from his pouch. He didn't relish using this jutsu, but considering she's a Jonin, Hinata is strong. She's far stronger than she looks. The lioness is not someone to be underestimated. He wrapped Hinata's right and left arms in the wires to prevent her from moving. He threw a shuriken at the approaching enemy quickly. He did the hand signs, and before he could even finish the jutsu, he was hit by the gentle fist, sending him flying. The woman looked at him with contempt. Is this the best you can do? Pathetic. The Uchihas are overrated, it seems. Hearing her talk badly about his clan made him feel filled with rage. He didn't care if he had access to his chakra. He charged at her and attacked her wildly. It was as if she was moving with a smooth motion. It was like she was made completely of water. He couldn't hit her. She was fast. She threw him down and put her right knee on his back, pinning him down. He saw Sakura do nothing. Hinata looked at her and she was angry. Sasuke felt a little angry himself. Why wasn't she doing anything? Why would she just stand there? Hinata was disappointed that Naruto couldn't fight, as his chakra reserves had been cut off. Sasuke was pinned to the ground and couldn't get up no matter how hard he fought to make her move off of him. It was over. She looked at Sakura, who was scared. She didn't do anything to support her or any of her teammates. She couldn't help but be disgusted. Is this all I can expect from you? Hinata asked, along with Sakura, who still did nothing. It had been only 20 minutes, and they all failed. They couldn't even last more than 20 minutes, it wasn't standard to give them less than 4 hours. She would give them one last chance, but she would give them a harsh lesson right now. This would be their last chance. In her eyes, this was more than they deserved. She was angry and disappointed. She expected more from Team 7, and all she got was a bunch of kids playing ninja. None of them took it seriously, they thought it was a game. She was going to put an end to that. It's been 20 minutes and you can't even manage to last more than that. What would you do if you were on a real mission with enemies that are trying to kill you? Hinata asked them. She looked at Sakura, who looked scared. Hinata didn't bother deactivating her Byakugan. This is what real battles are like, and what I gave you is only a taste. You just stood there while your teammates were fighting me. You did nothing. You didn't even try to assist them in any way. Do you think this is a game? Hinata asked her angrily. She looked at Sakura, who was scared of her. I'm sorry, Hinata-sensei. I'm scared. I felt useless and Hinata cut her off. Shut up and listen. I don't care why you want to be a ninja, but if you're going to consider being one, you better take it seriously. If this were a real battle and you did what you did just now, you would have been killed, and one of your comrades could have potentially been killed as well because of your inaction. Your uselessness is a detriment. What she said cut deep. Sakura had no response. She looked down, ashamed. Good, Hinata thought. She removed her knee from Sasuke's back. He got up, looking at her with hatred. Hinata was far harsher than she was on Sakura. Whatever your personal goal is, I don't give a damn, and I certainly don't care if you look at me with contempt because I'm a woman. You think because I'm a woman that I'm less deserving of this position. I don't give a damn about your problems. I don't give a damn about your goals either. You underestimated me and you abandoned your teammates for your own personal gain. Hearing what Hinata said just now really angered him. How dare this woman, no girl, say such ridiculous bullshit. When he thinks of his mother, Makoto Uchiha, she was nothing like this arrogant Hyuga. He couldn't stand her, and the more he hears her speak, the more he hates her. The self-righteousness pisses him off even more. He has to say something. He can't let this arrogant woman say such ridiculous bullshit unchallenged. It has nothing to do with you being a woman, it has to do with you being a Hyuga. You're all so arrogant and think you're so superior to everyone else. I don't like you, and I think there's plenty of women that I can name that are not stuck up or as arrogant as you. You sicken me. My mother Makoto Uchiha was a great kunoichi, one of the greatest of her generation. She wasn't an arrogant bitch like you. You insult my intelligence by saying such arrogant bullshit. Compared to other women, you're nothing more than an arrogant stuck-up bitch. She was taken aback. She couldn't show it. Of course she couldn't show herself losing control of the situation, so she didn't respond back to Sasuke's arguments. I will not be lectured by some privileged princess who has a practice in a clan that enslaves your own family members. You sicken me. Sasuke said with contempt. Yeah, he said it. The woman was taken aback. The worst part about what Sasuke said was that it was true, and she couldn't deny any of it. That was the worst part. She was so angry at Sasuke, but he was right. She couldn't openly admit that now. She couldn't lose control of the situation. She had to regain control before she lost it. And if she did, potential students would not respect her. She ignored the Uchiha and looked straight at Naruto. Probably the biggest disappointment. She had high expectations for him because he is the son of Kushina Uzumaki. Look at him with anger as well. So you think I'm just a pretty face, Naruto? You want to be the Hokage, but your performance so far has been a joke. And not to mention you endangered your teammates with such reckless usage of dangerous techniques. You didn't even consider the consequences. You could have killed Sakura and Sasuke. Not only do you not think, I don't know how you passed the academy with such mediocre skills. Naruto, like Sasuke, wasn't going to take what she was saying without arguing back. I worked hard to get here, and I won't let anyone insult my dream. Naruto stood up facing the woman before him. He wasn't afraid of her. You think you're the only one that has the aspiration of being Hokage. That is naive. You're not even unique in having that dream. There's been many that have had that dream before you. You are no one special. Naruto had no response. She figured it was typical. They still had plenty of time to get the bells, but she almost wanted to fail them now. All of you have failed to grasp the basic principles of the three-man cell. Do you know why we have them? Her team didn't look at her with confusion. They were thinking. Good, there was hope for them. Because a three-man cell is a team, said Sakura. Hinata nodded as if she understood what Sakura was talking about. Yes, it is about teamwork. There's no way we'd be able to succeed on missions with just individuals alone. That's absurd. Sending one ninja out on most missions would be a suicide mission, and that's not what we do unless the circumstances ask for it. Do you know why there's only 2 bells? Hinata asked them. Testing us for deception if we could see through it. Naruto asked her. Correct, but there's another reason, but I won't reveal that to you. You'll have to figure it out, but things will be much more difficult from here, since 2 of you are unable to use chakra. I'll give you another chance to prove yourselves, and if you can figure out why there's only 2 bells, you'll pass. If not, you'll be dropped from the program permanently. She looked to see their response. Naruto wanted to explode, but he held himself back. Naruto didn't explode at her. He was calm, not what she expected, which was a surprise. She welcomed one. She hoped her team passed it. It would be a shame not to have a chance to train Naruto and help fulfill the promise she had made to the woman who was like a second mother to her. She jumped away from them, wondering if they could pass despite the severe disadvantage they faced. She stood there with her arms crossed and her eyes closed. She thought this test was over, but she was willing to give the rest of the time they had left. She hoped they'd pass. It would be a shame for potential talented shinobi to be dropped due to the incompetence of the academy's instructors. They were at a severe disadvantage. Naruto and Sasuke couldn't use their chakra because it was sealed thanks to the gentle fist. There was no way they could win if there had been a fight between them. Getting the bell would be even more difficult. Then he thought of an idea. He looked at Sakura, and a plan started to form in his head. He decided to speak up. Sakura, Sasuke, I have an idea. They looked interestedly at Naruto to see what he had in mind. Since being Sasuke and I can't use any of our techniques because our chakra has been sealed, you will have to distract our sensei by creating shadow clones of your own. Sakura looked at him, like he was insane. I can't create the amount of shadow clones you can create, Naruto. That's impossible, and Sasuke, he can't do it either. How am I going to help, and what is Sasuke going to do? What are you going to do, dope? Sasuke asked Naruto about his plan. While you may be a distraction, Hinata-sensei wouldn't expect me to charge right at her and grab the bells. As for Sasuke, he can throw a smoke bomb at our sensei when she's momentarily blinded. You, Sasuke, will attack her while I will grab the bells. If everything works as planned, we should be able to get the bells and pass this test. Naruto said with a confidence he didn't really feel, but he had to show that he believed in his plan, otherwise, it would fall apart. Sakura thought it was insane. Sasuke thought it was stupid. You and I don't have any chakra at our disposal. How can we possibly succeed? Sasuke asked him annoyed, do you have any better ideas? Naruto challenged, whatever, we'll go with your stupid plan. Sasuke said, not really wanting to argue. Sasuke agrees with it then. I'll do it, but I don't know if we can accomplish this if I get hit by her gentle fist. It's over. Naruto smiled as if anticipating her response. That is why Sasuke and you will be the decoys, whatever bullshit regarding going back to the academy or dropping out permanently. We'll figure that shit out after we get the bells. Naruto knew this was a gamble, but he was confident it would pay off. Hinata opened her eyes. Sasuke was charging at her. Typical fools didn't take anything she said to heart. They all deserved to fail. Before she could get into her stance, Sakura created 2 shadow clones. She wasn't as skilled as Naruto when it came to shadow clones, which were difficult to tell apart unless you weren't as skilled. She didn't need to use her Byakugan to know which one was fake. She hit the real Sakura and she went down in a heap. Sasuke attempted to kick her. She knocked him down. But what surprised her was he threw smoke bombs in her eyes. It was difficult for her to see she couldn't use the Byakugan due to her inability to get the moisture out of her eyes. It was painful. They were taking advantage of the weakness of the Hyuga's eyes, which are extremely sensitive with any contact of materials that hinder eyesight. She knew someone was behind her and she knocked Naruto down as well. This was their best they could come up with in the time she gave them. They might as well be dropped now. Sakura couldn't do anything, just like the rest of them. Before she could announce that they failed, she saw Naruto with a smirk on his face. She looked and she noticed the bells were gone. So they were a distraction, so she wouldn't pay attention to Naruto. A good choice of strategy. Nothing she would have expected from him. Here was the final test. Did Naruto truly have what it took to be Hokage or to be a shinobi? It would be decided in the next few seconds. Good job, you got the bells, but you have to decide who is permanently dropped from the program. Hinata asked him. Naruto got up and spoke as if he knew the answer. We're a team of 3, it would make no sense sending one of us back if the other 2 stayed. We wouldn't be a 3-man cell, we would be a 2-man cell, and we work better in pairs of 3s. I think so, Naruto said, hoping he gave the right answer. She was pleased. Hinata was satisfied with his answer, which made him the correct one. Any other student would have failed, but he answered the basic question that was so simple, yet most couldn't grasp the basic principle of teamwork. You passed, she said with a genuine smile. She didn't know Naruto was turning away, blushing. Most of the other students who would have been in your position would have done everything. I chastised you for and doubled down on it. I gave you a second chance. I'm glad I was proven me wrong. I will train all of you, but it won't be easy. The training and the academy are nothing compared to what I'm going to do. I will hear no complaints from any of you. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Hinata-sensei, Sakura said, happy that she passed. Sasuke had an indifferent expression. Hinata said, leaving no room for complaint, and they nodded. Good rest for today. Tomorrow will be even harsher than today. Your training will begin anew. Hinata went towards each and every one of them and undid the seal on their chakra. Before they could go, she spoke to Naruto. Naruto, I need to speak to you alone before you go out about your day. Sasuke and Sakura headed home. Naruto stood there. Naruto was nervous beyond belief. He was alone with Hinata. No, she isn't going to give you what you think. This is not some hentai comic. Naruto chastised himself for even thinking such a thing. I'm sorry for what I said earlier. Hinata said, remorseful for how she had acted towards him in the test. It's fine, Hinata-sensei. I understand that you aren't wrong. Naruto said insecurely. He was terrible at ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu. He would never even become Hokage if he couldn't even master the fundamentals and basics. Naruto, I'm not like those teachers at the academy. I'm not going to leave you behind and focus only on Sasuke or even Sakura. You're all equal here, but you're far behind them. Your chakra control is abysmal. Your taijutsu skills are below average. Resistance against genjutsu is a skill that all shinobi should be equipped with. They didn't teach you anything in the academy. I will not let the incompetent and stupid teachers be the reason that you die needlessly. You will not go on a mission until you are ready. Now, after I'm done training Sakura and Sasuke, I can give you private lessons to speed up your learning. It'll take time for you to catch up, but I do know methods to help you catch up. So, if you do this, there won't be as much free time for you. I'm offering this to help you because I believe you are talented. You just don't know it yet. Naruto couldn't believe it. He was blushing at this woman who believed in him. She believed that he could do it. Something about her face, something about her smile, something about her eyes, he couldn't put his finger on it. There was a deep sadness in her eyes, loneliness and longing. What does this mean? He didn't know, he didn't dare let his mind wander. She was his teacher, nothing else. Thank you, Sensei. I hope I'm not inconveniencing you. Naruto said apologetically. You're not. I'm your teacher, and it's my duty to ensure you're the best ninja you can be. He had no idea what to say to that. See you tomorrow, Naruto. Don't be late if you want my extra lessons. You'll have to come early. Getting up earlier wasn't appealing to him, but getting stronger, being able to get closer to his goal, she was willing to help him. That's the first thing. Very few people have even considered helping him. He wasn't going to turn this down, he'd be a fool. You can count on me, I'll always be on time, Hinata-sensei. He bids her farewell for the day. He thinks about the woman she used to be, everything that he ever wanted. His heart beats rapidly. What is this feeling he has for his sensei? Kakashi knew what Hinata was going to say. She always made her contempt for the teachers at the academy known. Kakashi couldn't help but think how much Kushina would get along with Hinata if she were alive. She too hated the instructors and their teaching methods. The poor methods of teaching are one of the reasons why so many students, when they were sent off to war, got killed. It was those same incompetent teachers that were mostly appointed by the civilian council who couldn't teach to save their lives. Hokage-sama had been trying to reform the academy for years, but got blocked at every turn by them. I will make sure that Kushina's son gets the training he deserves. I will not allow any of my students to be killed because of the stupidity and incompetence of the instructors at the academy. Iruka did what he could for Naruto and his students, but he's only one man. He's one of the few who are qualified to teach. The others aren't. If you need any advice, don't hesitate to ask, I am always here. Kakashi vanished. Hinata would have to learn the ins and outs of being a teacher on her own. He has faith that she will succeed. After all, she will one day be the Hokage. Sasuke was on the start of his path to avenge his clan. He had passed along with the rest of his teammates. He would have to learn to work with his sensei despite his strong dislike for her because of her clan. Even if Hinata isn't like the others in her clan, it doesn't change how he looks at them. They're arrogant, stuck up, and think they're so much better than everyone else because they're currently the strongest clan of the village. More of baseless pride than actual evidence of them being the strongest clan of the village. He wouldn't despise the Hyugas as much if they actually showed evidence of their claims, which they have none. They claim to be the strongest clan in the village, yet why have none of their members ever even tried to become the Hokage? And the only one who is currently doing that is Hinata. He may not like the Senju clan, but at least they back up what they say and they don't go around claiming they're the strongest clan of the village. Despite being rivals and enemies of his clan, he would rather deal with them than deal with the Hyuga. He will deal with Hinata for now until he's promoted to Chunin, at which point he won't have to deal with the Hyuga anymore. Yeah, he'll put up with her for now. Sasuke headed home and went to bed to prepare for the training his sensei would give him. Chapter 2: The Training of Team 7. It would be 3 hours before Hinata would be on the training grounds with her team, who were training to give Naruto private lessons. She got up from her bed and went into the shower. She had forgotten to bathe the previous day due to being so focused on the belt test. She let the hot water fall over her body. It would be so tempting just to take her time. The hot water felt nice on her skin, despite coming from a prestigious clan. She refused to depend on her clan for finances. She paid for everything on her own. even though her appearance wasn't something she particularly cared about. It was important to maintain her appearance because a ninja's body is a weapon, and one of Kenichi's greatest assets is their body. It should be taken care of. Her appearance is not her priority, but considering that she's Kenichi, her pride won't allow her to not look her best. After all, everything is a weapon, including her body, which disgusts her that she must see her body in that way or see it in that way. But it's the truth. Her body is a weapon, just like any other, and making sure to take care of her appearance is like sharpening a blade on a katana or a shuriken. Her appearance is useful to catch men off guard and get them to talk. She doesn't like it, but she's not going to not use it. Whatever tools she has at her disposal, they have helped her on many of her missions. She was once offered a position in the Abu because of her looks and how useful it would be, and how good she would be at the job. She could have accepted, but she had no desire for that kind of life. Work assignments in the Anbu Black Ops can be anywhere from months to years, and she has no desire for it. Not to mention the mental toll it takes on the individual. Most don't serve in the Anbu for more than 5 years. The kinds of things required by those who are part of that occupation change them fundamentally to their core. Not to mention, she has no desire to lose herself. She wants to become Hokage, and she doesn't want to lose her humanity in the process. Because that's the danger of being a part of the Anbu. The standard for the Anbu isn't nearly as bad as Root, which shouldn't exist as an organization, but it does if she were Hokage. She would have forced the organization to disband permanently, either officially or not. She was thinking too much as the water continued to drop on her body. As she rubbed the soap she usually used, she thought about everything that had happened. Her promise to Kushina, that she had made when she was almost 6 years old, about a week before Naruto's birth, was something she took very seriously. She was determined to keep that promise. Some would criticize her for holding on to a promise of a little girl she has no obligation to keep. Kushina inspired her to become a great kunoichi, and she almost became the 4th Hokage. Had it not been for the bias against her by the civilian council, she would have been the 4th Hokage. She was so furious when she was a child. She was only 4 years old and she recalls the memory vividly. It was one of the few times the shy and timid girl who she was ever got angry openly. Minato, her husband, was chosen instead. He was a great Hokage for the time that he was. When she felt like Kushina was robbed of something that was hers by right, that she had worked hard for. She cried when she thought about her and Minato, who were important people to her. Her mother was a great friend of theirs, as was the man she refused to call father. After she was done rubbing the soap on her body and washing it off, she went to the shampoo that she uses and rubbed it through every inch of her scalp. She was determined to have her hair clean. Impressions were everything after all. After a few minutes of ensuring that every ounce of her scalp was covered, she washed it off and then used conditioner for her hair. She had lavender conditioner in order to make her hair look and smell nice. She would be called a hypocrite for chastising Sakura, but there was a difference between focusing solely on your appearance and taking care of your appearance. She hopes to instill that difference to Sakura in time. All Kenichi cares about their appearance to one degree or another, considering how useful their bodies can be in interrogation and getting what they want from men who have viable information. It is especially useful for deceiving enemies by getting them to lower their guard. She hopes to instill those lessons into Sakura. She has the potential to be a great ninja, but for her potential to be completely brought out, she would have to get over her infatuation with Sasuke. When she was thoroughly done putting the conditioner on her scalp, she slowly and carefully rinsed it out. The last thing she wanted was for there to be any conditioner left when it dried. It would be problematic and attract attention she didn't need. Once she was satisfied, she turned off the water and dried herself. She went into her closet and got out her clothes that she would be wearing for the day. Though the main difference was she was going to go to her preferred attire, the only difference is she would wear her vest over it. Her preferred attire is a form-fitting light lavender, sleeveless kimono-style blouse with vertical lines, tied with a dark purple obi around her waist and short dark navy shorts. She also wore thigh-high stockings with black, open-toed boots. She made sure to put her vest over her upper body. She looked at herself in the mirror perfect. The outfit she wore yesterday, she looked at it, it was what she wore as a chunin, but because of her recent promotion she wanted her attire to reflect that. Though she was clueless of how Naruto reacted to her appearance regardless if she thought it made her look like a teenage girl. That's more like it. This makes me look like a mature woman unlike before. Hinata said, proud of the outfit of her choice. What made it even better was it covered that mark on her neck that she didn't want anybody to see. After she was done, she went to where she kept her ninja tools and double-checked if she had that she was required to have. When she was satisfied that she had what was needed, she made herself breakfast. It was nothing special, it was just pancakes. After she was done, she made sure to make lunch for herself. She stored it in a scroll, the wonders of summoning jutsus. After she was done, she headed out. Would be there before Naruto, but that wouldn't be so bad. She always did her training exercises early in the morning and late at night in order to keep herself in shape and maintain her discipline. She got to the training grounds. She went to her usual training routine. It wasn't like the one she did a few days ago, her preferred training exercise, but it would be sufficient. She would train for the next hour, and when she was done, she sat down cross-legged and sat in meditation and waited for her student to arrive. Naruto made sure to go to bed early in order to arrive at the training grounds on time, where he will receive the extra training that Hinata promised him. He wants to prove to his new sensei that he is worth her time. He can't deny that he is infatuated with her. He looks at himself in the mirror. He feels so lame, but he can't get any other clothes because of how the villagers treat him and deny him access to any of the shops. So, he has to make do with what he has. He didn't know why. He just didn't want to be seen as a child, so he wanted Hinata to take him seriously. He didn't want her to see him as a boy, he wanted her to see him as a man worthy of her respect and time. He made sure to get everything he needed. He double-checked all the essentials in his pouch, along with his tools, which were required for all ninja to possess. He wasn't required to have shuriken, but he had them anyway. He couldn't believe his stroke of luck in the past few days. Not only had he become a shinobi, but he also had Hinata Hyuga as a sensei. He never thought he would even have a chance to have someone like her as a sensei. Or for her to give him the time of day. Until this point, the adults had treated him as a pest, someone not worth acknowledging his existence. He can only count on one hand the amount of people who treated him as human: Haruka, Tsuki, and Ayame, along with the elderly Hokage. Hinata was the only other person who had ever done that. Hearing her say that she believed in him, that he had talent more than anyone had ever said, everyone else that he would never accomplish anything, and that he would forever be a loser. He didn't know what this feeling was. It was nothing like his crush on Sakura. It was something different entirely. He put that thought aside. He couldn't focus on that right now. He had to get to the training grounds. He couldn't afford to be late. He had to make Hinata believe that he was worth her time. After he was done double-checking that he had everything, he left and was really looking forward to Hinata's private lessons. 20 minutes later, Naruto arrived at the training grounds. He saw Hinata in a different outfit than what she wore the previous day, and it was hard to believe, but she looked even more beautiful than she did in the previous outfit she was wearing. It was difficult for him to actually comprehend. He couldn't help admiring her. Then he stopped himself. He didn't want her to think that he was some horny fanboy. Many boys had a crush on her, which was no secret. Men lusted after her, but the idea of anyone looking at her but him made him filled with rage and jealousy. "Stop it," he said himself. He took a deep breath and spoke, wanting to bury his nervousness of being alone with this beautiful woman. "I'm here, sensei," Naruto said shyly, not realizing how meek it sounded. The woman opened her eyes and smiled, but then he noticed something about that smile. It wasn't genuine. Now that he thinks about it, neither was the first time they met. This woman was reluctant to smile, but why? It felt artificial now that Naruto thought about it. He did not have time to indulge in his thoughts before Hinata spoke. "I am pleased that you came early. For the next hour, I'm going to evaluate what your skills are and where they're at, so I know what skills need to be worked on and how we can proceed. Let's show me everything that you can do first. Let's start with the basics, but first, I want you to create a shadow clone." Creating a shadow clone was a basic skill that was required for most shinobi, with exceptions for those who didn't have the ability to do ninjutsu. Most shinobi were required to at least be able to create 2 shadow clones. This would be easy. When he was done creating a shadow clone, he couldn't tell what Hinata was thinking. "I want you to create as many shadow clones as possible, and I want them to do the exact same thing that we were doing not too long ago." Naruto created hundreds of shadow clones. His sensei looked at them and she created 20 shadow clones of her own. "What do you want us to do, boss?" asked one of her shadow clones. Training exercises with your shadow clones. The exact same thing I'm doing with him, she ordered, but there was a hesitation in her clones. They started training with his. What was the point in this? He would ask. Later. Let's start with the basics, Naruto. Show me your skills with taijutsu. He started using his taijutsu, she blocking everything he threw at her, dodging in a fluid motion. If this were any other situation, he could have admired her gracefully and elegantly. But he couldn't admire her now, he didn't want her to think he was a pervert. She went on the offensive, Naruto unable to keep up. She was much faster and stronger than him. He tried to block everything, but he couldn't. He knew she was holding back, but even with her holding back, he couldn't keep up. He felt so pathetic. He was glad he wasn't in the judgmental eyes of his peers back at the academy. They would think of him as a pathetic wretch. The object of his desire his sensei doesn't want him to do, so he doesn't want her to acknowledge him. He knows this is just a basic exercise, but he still feels inadequate and weak. Why can't he be better? He's frustrated and angry, but he keeps his feelings to himself. Of course, he doesn't want Hinata to think he's angry with her. She ordered him to stop so that he could move on to the next exercise. Show me your skills now at using a kunai. He did exactly as she asked, taking her own, and they fought. He was amazed by her speed, she was so much faster, and he couldn't keep up. He did a lot better than he did with taijutsu, but that wasn't saying much since he was made more and more aware of just how abysmal his skills were. It was amazing that he was even a genin. The exercise continued, so she told him to practice throwing kunai. He did, and he did well. Actually, she didn't show any expression on her face. Now show me your skills with the shuriken. Like you did for the kunai, I want you to show me your skills with the shuriken. He did exactly as she instructed and threw the shuriken as best he could. Most of them hit the bullseye. He didn't know what she was thinking. What was the point in this? When she ripped into his mediocre skills the previous day, he couldn't help but realize she was right. Some of the basic skills he's expected to know make him feel like a complete amateur. She signaled him to stop. It felt like she gave up. She realized just how much of a disappointment he is and he's a waste of time, but she didn't let him indulge in those thoughts. She spoke. I've seen enough, she said with a neutral tone. He gulped. So this was it then. She was going to judge him as not worth her time, but before his thoughts could progress any further, she continued. You weren't taught the basic skills of self-defense and how to properly operate as a ninja. This isn't your fault. I don't know what nonsense you had to deal with in the academy. The biases you experienced, the opportunities that were taken from you to learn skills, most shinobi take for granted. I told you I would teach you properly, and I mean that. I had to evaluate your skills, so I know where to begin. My shadow clones are teaching yours the same lessons I'm about to teach you. She explained patiently. Naruto wondered what reason did she have for him to create shadow clones at the start of their private training exercise. Do you know every time your shadow clone dissipates, you gain that information from that clone? Hinata asked him. Wait, what? Naruto asked, dumbfounded, but what he felt like should have been common knowledge. The fact that he had never heard of this before. Hinata continued, genin shouldn't be able to use techniques as advanced as this one. Your confusion is understandable. Not many ninja know this, and the kind of shadow clones you use is a very advanced technique that genin shouldn't even be able to use at all. The reason why this knowledge isn't widely known is how dangerous it is, and how many potential users would kill themselves because they would be impatient about wanting to get stronger faster. It made sense to Naruto. He probably would have been tempted to use this technique if he had known about it earlier. He can create thousands of shadow clones, and he'd be so easy to defeat. He'd be able to make progress quickly by using this method, but before he could indulge in that thought, Hinata shut down what he was thinking immediately. I know what you're thinking, Naruto. You shouldn't do it. It's dangerous. Yes, you are capable of utilizing this technique better than most of the village because of your large chakra reserves, but you should be careful. As if to demonstrate her point, all of Naruto's clones dissipated, making him feel disoriented. You see the drawbacks of this technique. You already know this, that you get the information from the clone. Well, if you gain too much information at once, it will overload your brain. That's why it's better that you train with fewer shadow clones at least at the beginning so you don't overwhelm yourself. Do not be impatient, Naruto. It's not worth dying just to catch up to Sasuke and Sakura quickly. You will catch up with them in time, but not if you recklessly use this technique that you have at your disposal. It's a great tool, but it's dangerous. Potentially, if you don't use it properly. She was explaining to him patiently what he did to deserve someone like her. This was the first day, but he learned more than he had through most of his time at the academy. He felt angry that they didn't teach him anything. Your basic techniques, though what I've evaluated from them, they're mediocre. Sorry to be so harsh, but it's the truth, you're not bad at taijutsu. I'm actually amazed at how good you are, considering you weren't taught most of your skills. They must have been self-taught, or else I wouldn't be so impressed. She asked him. Naruto barely spoke the whole time, answering. I trained relentlessly to try to refine my skills in hand-to-hand combat. I couldn't stand losing to Sasuke all the time or anyone else, so I trained almost non-stop until I could at least be able to properly defend myself. Because the village took advantage of me, I never mind, I think I've said too much. Barter felt like he'd said too much about the village's treatment of him and how he had to learn proper taijutsu just to survive, even if it was self-taught. He couldn't tell from her expression what she was feeling when he revealed that information. Your skills in taijutsu are not as bad as you think they are, Naruto. I know what you're thinking in your head. You've taught yourself for the most part, but the more advanced techniques that are required for Genin you haven't learned. You weren't taught them to properly defend yourself. You aren't taught the defensive aspects of taijutsu and how to properly disarm your enemy or to counter any attacks they would throw at you. Naruto sat down, listening intently to her lessons. Your skills with a kunai and shuriken are really good, actually better than most of your age. Though I can use them just like everything else. He was blushing, one of the few things he wasn't awful. Maybe he thought too lowly of himself. There are other skills that are required, but I know you haven't been taught them, so that's why I ended the evaluation earlier than I originally intended. Naruto, I told you yesterday that I have no intention of having you go out on a mission until I am comfortable that you know these skills and you are adequate at them. With your shuttle clones, you will be able to catch up to Sakura and Sasuke quickly. There are other skills that you need to work on, like chakra control, but that's not nearly as essential as the basic skills that you are inadequate at. It was difficult to tell by her tone what her feelings were, disappointment or pity. No, pity is not something she would feel towards him. If she felt pity towards him, it would be insufferable. Instruction. I like to train you for more private lessons after I train the others. More private lessons. Naruto would squeal at the thought of spending more time with her. He put that thought aside, it's just training, nothing more. But he really liked her, something about her made it easy to be around her, even if she doesn't smile or laugh. Something drove him to her, and he didn't know why. His thoughts about her ended as soon as Sasuke and Sakura showed up. Naruto went to his team, who were giving him a look he didn't like. It especially came from Sasuke and Sakura, but he ignored it for now. His priority was to be on his sensei's good side so she wouldn't feel like she's wasting her time with him. All right, team. Hinata started to speak to everyone. This is our first day as a team. We're going to start with exercises that will test our teamwork abilities. She started to explain the basics of formations and how to communicate non-verbally. It was a lot to take in. Naruto made sure to create shadow clones when they were on break in order to do the training that Hinata promised. It wasn't too many shadow clones, it was 5. The other shadow clones listened intently to Hinata's lesson so Naruto would ingrain the lesson into his memory. He was determined not to hold his team back. The next week was extremely difficult. The training was the hardest training he had ever had in his life. Despite his sensei's advice, Naruto still trained even after their training sessions. He had his shadow clones train, doing the same thing that Hinata taught him. He wasn't going to be a burden on anyone. He was careful about the amount of shadow clones he created, though. He didn't do it while they were training because he knew it would create more shadow clones than were recommended. He did that after training was over. When he spent the rest of his day relaxing, his shadow clones trained heavily, much to their annoyance. The unfortunate thing for Naruto was that he didn't make as much progress as he wanted. He felt exhausted after each training session, because it felt like he didn't ever sleep. But he was determined to catch up by any means necessary. He had the means to do it, why not use his shadow clones to get stronger faster? Why wait years to catch up when he could do it much faster than that? This wouldn't go unnoticed by his sensei or his peers. The intense training that he was doing wasn't unnoticed by Hinata, who after a week decided she had to have a talk with him. She appreciated his effort to try to get stronger, but she was worried about how he was going about it. He was eager to please her, she wasn't blind to it, he wanted to prove to her that he was worth her time. She had to put a stop to Naruto's reckless training regimen before it did something that would do irreversible damage. Naruto looked exhausted. Naruto looked at her and smiled. It was a fake smile, she knew, but he was trying to save face. He was exhausted from all that training. Naruto, we need to talk about the training regimen that you're doing. Hinata said to him in a worried tone. What do you mean, sensei? Naruto said, playing dumb. Hinata took a deep breath. Patience. Naruto, I know you want to get stronger quickly, but you're not going to get stronger if you're exhausted all the time in your training sessions. Naruto, you need to rest when you're not training. You shouldn't be training 24/7. There's only so much that you can do. Yes, you can use your clones to do what you can't do normally, but even then, your clones also feel what you feel. You're not going to get the results that you want that way. Naruto knew that she was right. You barely made any progress this week because you're impatient. You're going to catch up to your teammates at the rate that you're going. If you wish to catch up to them, you're going to have to do it the right way. Rest when you're not training. It is an important part of being a shinobi to rest. Know when to train and know when not to. Hinata explained to him in a gentle tone. I didn't think you would care, Naruto admitted. Of course I care, you're my student, and I want you to succeed. Naruto, that's why we're doing these private lessons. I want you to be who I believe you can be. Naruto. Hinata explained to a boy who wasn't used to people caring about him. It baffled her why he was treated this way, but she held her thoughts aside. This wasn't about her feelings, it was about her student. I just don't want you to think you're wasting your time teaching me. Naruto admitted, embarrassed. So he wanted to impress her. She put her right hand on his shoulder and made him face her. Listen, things aren't the same as they are in the academy when you fail. I'm not going to chastise you for it. I'll tell you to try again and as many times as necessary until you succeed, Naruto. Failure is the end, you're a proud failure, Naruto. I can see that about you. Please, I'm asking you to take more care of yourself. You're exhausted today. I won't train you because you're tired. I order you, as your sensei, to rest. We'll train tomorrow. Naruto didn't look happy about that, but he wasn't going to argue with her. However, he looked at her and wanted to ask her a question. Why do you call me a proud failure? She asked curiously. Because that's what I was. I didn't give up when I failed, it made me try harder. I guess I see part of myself when I was your age. I know what it's like when people look at you and don't think you're going to do anything or succeed at anything. You're not a failure, Naruto. A failure would give up before they've even started. You haven't. If you ask me, you are not a failure. This lesson that you're getting today is a lesson in patience. You'll get stronger. You'll catch up to your classmates. Believe in yourself. Rest when you're supposed to and train when you're supposed to. That's how you'll be able to catch up. She contrived smiled. He looked disappointed that she wasn't training him, but quickly changed his expression. He was trying to save face. Okay, sensei. I won't train with you today. I'll rest for the day. Naruto headed back home. Sakura and Sasuke would ask questions, wondering why Naruto wasn't going to train with them today. She would explain that he wasn't feeling well, but she wouldn't tell them because of overexhaustion from training. Sasuke would have to admit that Hinata was a good teacher, despite his dislike of her. He wasn't going to ignore what was obvious. She explained things quickly and concisely. She didn't waste time, rather than getting into long, boring lectures about how to do this skill or how this works. She showed it. It was refreshing in a way. He would have to admit that he was making more progress in a week than he had in most of his time at the academy. It baffled him just how incompetent those teachers were. Iruka aside, they couldn't teach to save their lives. Even his sensei laughed when she recounted how incompetent they were when she was teaching them the basic formations, something they should have taught them at the academy. She wasn't wrong when she said their training would start again. It felt like he knew nothing, but the way she explained it, she did it patiently and didn't hesitate to help those who were struggling with lessons. He noticed Naruto struggled and suspected that Naruto and Hinata were having private lessons. It wasn't his business, and it didn't concern him. If the dope was going to get extra lessons from Hinata in order for him not to be a burden to her, then it was the same to him. He would rather Naruto be able to hold his own weight than be useless. He couldn't help but notice that she was at him with abhorrence. She didn't say anything, but he could feel that she was uncomfortable around him. He didn't know why. He had heard rumors that his brother was involved with a Hyuga. Could Hinata be that person? It didn't matter, though. If she was, it didn't matter to Sasuke. Did she look at him with hatred even if she didn't show it? He wanted to confront her about it, but he felt like it'd be a waste of time. No, he had to do something. Sensei was alone. She wasn't doing her private sessions on Naruto yet. Sasuke was never this early, but he had to confront Hinata about it. She was surprised to see him. Sasuke, I didn't expect to see you so early. She said, surprised. Yeah, well, I want to ask something. And I've noticed this. Ever since you started teaching me, you look at me with apprehension and hatred, and I don't understand why. What the hell did I do to deserve this? Sasuke was not usually this confrontational, but he had to know there's no way he was going to not get answers. He was going to get answers otherwise. I don't know what you mean, Sasuke. Hinata said, avoiding the question. Look, since I don't know what your problem is with me, but I want to know if you're going to be my teacher. I want to get this resolved. I don't make it a secret. I don't like you, but I want honesty. Sasuke said, on the verge of losing his patience. Hinata signed. I would rather not talk about it. It's something personal, she said with her voice guarded. Sasuke couldn't help but detect there was something painful in that tone. It couldn't be. Sasuke didn't want to believe the rumors even before the massacre. He recalled a conversation that he overheard with Itachi and his father regarding his relationship with a Hyuga. He thought it was just a baseless rumor at the time. Something by Hinata's expression confirmed it wasn't. Flashback. 6 years ago, 1 year before the Uchiha clan massacre. Sasuke wasn't able to sleep. He got up and went to the bathroom, but he heard two people arguing. He knew he shouldn't have eavesdropped, but it was his big brother arguing with their father. He made sure not to be seen, so he listened to his father Fugaku and his brother argue. I don't want you to see her anymore, his father said, not leaving any room for argument. Why, father? I'm doing exactly what you want. I'm spying for you. What harm does it do to the clan with my friendship with her? He asked angrily. That girl is a Hyuga, and she's pathetic and weak. She was disinherited by her own clan in favor of her more talented younger sister. You're wasting your time training her, his father argued in revulsion. Don't talk about her like that, Itachi said defensively. Don't forget that you are my heir. I won't have you involved with a Hyuga, especially one as pathetic as her. Itachi was so angry that it scared Sasuke. He slammed his father against the wall and activated his Sharingan. Sasuke felt killing intent from his brother. He had never felt so terrified of him before. Then, as soon as the moment passed, he put his father down. I'm sorry, father, Itachi said apologetically. Sasuke decided to leave the room. He didn't want to eavesdrop anymore. He couldn't help but pick up on the fact that his brother was in love with a Hyuga girl and was very protective of her. He wanted to get answers, but unfortunately, he never did. His brother always avoided the question whenever he asked. Back to the present. What happened that night? He remembered the argument between Itachi and his father. The woman, the way she looked at him, it started to click for Sasuke. He didn't need to ask her anymore. It was no secret that he had a strong resemblance to his older brother, so that could be the reason why they were in a relationship and it ended badly. Seeing him reminded her of that relationship. He didn't like her, but he wasn't asking any more questions. He got his answers just by her expression on her face. It said more than words would. Sasuke decided to drop it. The last thing he wanted to do was aggravate his sensei. If he did that, she'd be less willing to train him, and that's the last thing he could afford. He couldn't waste any time. His brother he had to kill. And he wouldn't be able to do that if he didn't get the training that was required. Sorry, let's drop it and focus on training. Sasuke apologized, his demeanor changing as soon as he said that. Something about this woman made him feel uncomfortable. She seemed hard to read. He had heard rumors that she was cold and detached and kept people at arm's length. What did his brother do to her? No, he wouldn't indulge in that thought. That didn't concern him. His training and getting stronger was what mattered. Not his sensei's past relationships. That wasn't relevant. A few minutes later, Sakura showed up and she was confused as to why Naruto wasn't there. He had been. Where was he exactly? Naruto isn't feeling well today, so I let him go home and rest. It's important that all ninja remember this lesson. Overtraining is never good for the body. In order to actually get stronger, you must know when to train and when not to. Sasuke understood this, but Sakura was listening in. It was obvious to Sasuke that Naruto had overtrained using his shadow clones. Of course, he would use shadow clones to try to catch up quickly. He smirked. That makes sense, but we're three-man cells. What are we going to do today if Naruto isn't here? Sakura asked Hinata. I'll train both of you in skills that you lack. Sakura, attack me as if you're going to kill me. Stay wondered what she was getting at. Sakura did as she was told. Despite her best efforts, she wasn't able to do much. Hinata took Sakura to a chokehold and then let her go. Sakura, you don't have the strength Naruto and Sasuke have. If you're going to fight, you have to think there's more than one way to fight than attacking an enemy head-on. To prove her point, she showed alternative ways to attack. She showed her various different ways to approach a situation. This was obvious. Sasuke was annoyed, but then again, the people at the academy were incompetent and were not qualified to teach. None of them were worth a damn. With the exception of Iruka. Sensei, can I speak freely? Asked Sakura. Hinata nodded, and then Sakura began speaking. Why weren't we taught this at the academy? These skills that you're showing us, that you've been teaching us for the past week, should be obvious. What the hell were we doing for all these years? What was the point of the academy? What was the point of us doing all these pointless tests? I almost feel like the damn council expects Jonin pick up the slack instead of doing their damn jobs. Sakura ranted. Her grades were good, but she realized how useless they were in the real world. Sasuke understood how useless the academy had been. It didn't teach them any useful skills. It's no wonder so many students were dropped from the program. The civilian council is a joke. He thought. I understand your frustration, Sakura. I share them, but these skills are required, otherwise there is no chance any of you to survive on any life or death missions. I understand your contempt for the civilian council and its incompetent teachers they appointed. I share them. I suffered from the same problem you have. It's one of the reasons why I'm teaching you all step by step, teaching you what they should have taught you years ago. Sakura listened to her patiently as Hinata continued. They have a bias towards students that don't do as well academically. As we all know, academics isn't everything. Students aren't tested based on actual ability for the most part. Oh, there's so much I would tell you how much I hate about the current system that we would be here all day, but there's no time. Now Sakura, let me show a way you can defend yourself against an opponent that's stronger than you. Sasuke saw Hinata show her various techniques to disarm stronger opponents than the one they're fighting. He couldn't help but admire the way she was teaching. She gave constructive feedback but also didn't sugarcoat where someone's skills were or how they could improve. He was definitely satisfied that he had someone like her as his sensei, rather than someone who would be completely inept in spite of her being a Hyuga. After she was done, she went to Sasuke. He would tolerate these boring and tedious lessons for now, until the more advanced techniques are taught. He cursed those idiots at the council for forcing him to go through this kind of training. He had already gone through it years ago. It had been 2 weeks since Hinata gave him that harsh lesson about when to train and when not to. It was a difficult lesson for Naruto to swallow. He saw the results, however, when he took her advice, he got more done. He actually got stronger faster by resting. He wouldn't lie if it didn't take a toll on his pride, but he would never tell his sensei that. All he wanted to do was have her recognize him as a man and not a boy. Though it was futile, of course, getting her to acknowledge a 13-year-old shinobi as a man was asking for a laugh. But there were other things she could see in his eyes, the sadness, and her smiles, every one of them, that she gave to him and his teammates. It was fake, it wasn't real. With such a beautiful face, it was difficult for him not to feel sad. What drove him to her? He couldn't explain it. It wasn't just a physical attraction. It was something else entirely. She noticed he was spacing out. Is something on your mind? Hinata asked him as they tried something different during a training exercise near a lake. He didn't know what kind of training to expect from her, so the first time they did it, she told him it was a way to calm the mind. It worked. He practiced this training method with his clones, improving his chakra control immensely. He wasn't able to walk on water, but that wasn't the point of the exercise, the water was shallow. It was to train him to stay focused. She started to show him this method when he returned from his rest. When he wasn't allowed to train until he was completely better in mind and body, he wouldn't have been able to do it. He recalls an embarrassing first lesson when she taught him this method to keep his body and spirit focused. Flashback 2 weeks ago. Naruto wondered why his sensei was leading him to this spot, where he saw the water was shallow. It was near a lake, just what was it that Hinata was bringing him here for? He saw his sensei take off her jacket and remove part of her clothing. Naruto turned away, blushing furiously. When Hinata finished, she took a glance at what she was wearing, a one-piece bathing suit. Part of him was disappointed and relieved that she didn't strip down to her undergarments. Even though she didn't, he couldn't help but admire her body. It didn't completely cover everything. No, he couldn't let his imagination run wild, but he couldn't take his eyes off of her. He kicked himself. He didn't want his sensei to lose respect for him because he saw her as a piece of meat rather than a person. Though he wouldn't lie, he found her body extremely attractive. Naruto stripped down. Naruto blinked. What? Don't make me repeat myself. Hinata replied. He was embarrassed. He did as she instructed and he was down to nothing but his underwear. I'm going to show you an exercise that will help you concentrate. They'll calm down the body and mind. This was taught to me by my mother. Said reluctantly, detecting the sadness in her tone when she mentioned her. Naruto did not ask any questions, not wanting to see her sad. I can't walk on water, is the point of this exercise. How will this help me mentally and physically? Naruto asked her. I'll show you. Hinata went into the water and moved her body like a dancer. Her body moved in smooth motion. She moved with grace and elegance. It was like watching a dancer from a play. Naruto could watch her all day and get lost in her movements. She is so beautiful, Naruto thought. He let his imagination run wild of Hinata taking him by the hand and they danced like a couple in a fantasy story. At the end of it, Naruto leaned towards Hinata and Naruto stopped turning red and feeling embarrassed when his imagination ran wild again. He took a deep breath, not wanting Hinata to notice his blushing. Are you okay, Naruto? Hinata looked concerned, oblivious to the cause of Naruto's blushing. Oh, I'm fine. He couldn't say what he wanted to say, he felt like a stuttering fool. She made him feel like this. No, he couldn't let her see him like this. He couldn't. He put his thoughts aside and did exactly what she instructed. He was clumsy by comparison, he was nowhere near as elegant or graceful as she. Hinata, in fact. It was clumsy. The woman was patient as Naruto. She copied everything that she did, but then she told him to stop. Naruto, she said kindly, I don't expect you to copy everything I do. The point of the exercise is for you to relax and find your own way. They continued with the exercise until it was time for them to head to the training grounds. After that embarrassing episode, thankfully, his sensei didn't notice. He trained on his own when she wasn't instructing him. It was a useful training exercise to the spirit. It actually helped him concentrate better and had him make more progress. He felt like he was progressing at a faster rate. It was so stupid for him to do what he did in the first week. He made more progress in the 2 weeks since then. All his time then at the academy. Having the shadow clone technique almost felt like having a cheat code. He was doing things that would be difficult, if not impossible, for most people. He was able to get training done in a matter of weeks, rather than months. The jutsu that he had learned, he managed to master quickly, but he doesn't use them because he hasn't had a situation where they were needed. Like the wind-style wind explosion, or wind bullet, he wondered what Hinata was going to teach him this time. He is always eager for her lessons. She was so nice to him, even though she had never smiled once, she always treated him with kindness and respect. She never talked down to him or insulted him when he made a mistake. She was perfect to him in every way, it made him desire something else. He couldn't explain these feelings he was having towards her. It was different than how he felt about Iruka and some of the other people who had treated him like a human being. It wasn't the same. When he looks at her face, he wonders what her smile would look like if it were real and genuine, and what her laugh would sound like. Naruto is determined to find out one day. You're doing a good job, Naruto. You have made a lot of progress in the past few weeks, said his sensei, pleased with the amount of progress he was making. Naruto wiped his forehead with the towel that Hinata had provided for him. It was amazing how much progress he had made under such a short amount of time. His body was more lean and had more muscle thanks to the Shadow Clones training regimen. They did everything he instructed them to do. They did all the heavy workouts every other day, while Naruto did his own training with Hinata. It was amazing the amount of progress he was able to make under a short amount of time, but he knew he wasn't even close to his goal. He wouldn't be for quite a while. Sasuke struggled in their sparring matches. It wasn't one-sided anymore. Sasuke actually had to put all of his effort into not lose to Naruto. His life changed so quickly that it was overwhelming. She handed him a bottle of water, and he drank it. "Huh, what a workout. Thank you for showing me this training regimen, sensei. I made so much progress, I don't know if I could have done it without you," Naruto said embarrassedly. "You've always been talented, Naruto. You just need a teacher to bring it out," she said kindly. When he looked into her eyes, he couldn't help but see sadness and loneliness in them. It seemed like she was holding something back, that she had built walls around herself. She had kept her team at arm's length, which bothered Naruto not because she did it to him but because he understood that loneliness. He didn't want her to feel lonely. He doesn't have the courage to say anything. "We should get going, Naruto. We don't want to keep your teammates waiting." Hinata got up and put on her vest. Naruto was thinking deeply about what it would take to make her smile. What would it take to make her laugh? Naruto was determined to find out one day. He would know what a smiling and laughing Hinata looks like someday. He strongly believes it. Hinata kept her distance from her teammates. She didn't want to get too close to anyone. She put her team at arm's length, which wasn't unnoticed by her peers, who were training their own students. She had a day off, and that's what she usually wore. She didn't like standing out even more in the red light district. She hated being there, but the restaurants were cheaper in the red light district than in other parts of Konoha. They were in a restaurant in the red light district, which Hinata couldn't help but be disgusted by the very idea. This is where her sensei, Kakashi, wanted to meet her along with her peers, Asuma and Kurenai. She didn't even know why Kurenai would want to be in a place like this. It disgusted her. She hated this place. "Hinata, you need to smile more," Asuma said, trying to relieve the tension in the bar that they were at. She didn't want to drink. It was legal, technically, since she turned 18, but she never liked the taste of sake. Not to mention, she didn't want to get drunk. The last time she did was no different. She didn't want to think of that night. So she dropped it as soon as it entered her mind. "I do smile, I just don't like it here," she replied, annoyed. "I don't know what Naruto sees in you, I mean seriously, relax. This place is cheaper than the rest of the village, not to mention it's one way to give the finger to your clan who takes themselves way too seriously," remarked Kakashi. "You should relax seriously, Hinata, you're going to get old before your time, you'll have wrinkles before you turn 30 at this rate," Asuma said playfully. "Certainly Team 7 can't be that bad," asked Kurenai. "It has nothing to do with that, it's just, she didn't want to be reminded tonight was the anniversary." "You are pathetic and weak, Hinata, just like every other Hyuga. A weakling like you will never be Hokage. Trusting me was a mistake. I'll spare your pathetic life because you're not worth killing," said Itachi 5 years ago when she confronted him. When she was chasing him. When he was fleeing Konoha. She had almost lost her life that night. She remembers that night vividly. She doesn't want to believe it. She won't think of him. She takes the bottle of sake and gulps the entire bottle at once, shocking everyone in her group. "Damn, you should be careful with that, it's strong stuff," remarked Kakashi. "I know this isn't the happiest day for you, and we didn't want you stuck in your apartment drowning yourself in memories of that awful night," said Kurenai, understanding what had happened, but they couldn't have understood that night. Her trust in people, her ability to believe in others, was destroyed along with her heart being ripped out of her chest and crushed like it was nothing. Since then, she has no desire to get close to anyone. They would never listen to her, they would tell her to open up again, but she has no desire to. Naruto Uzumaki keeping her promise to her mother figure, which was the only thing that kept her going, and becoming the Hokage was all that mattered, there was nothing else. Hinata, you need to open up. I know what happened is painful, but you can't be fixated on the past, you have to move on, said Kakashi. Worried about her well-being, she asked the bartender to give her another bottle of sake and she gulped it down just like the first one. I think you've had enough, Hinata, said Kurenai, who was worried about her drinking. I'm fine. Her speech was slurred due to her being under the influence. I'll take her home, Asuma. Kurenai said to her boyfriend. I hope you don't forget our date tomorrow, he said to her with a smile. I wouldn't dream of it, Kurenai said, smiling as she took Hinata by the hand and they left the bar. With Kakashi and Asuma. After Hinata and Kurenai left, Kakashi said to Asuma, that certainly could have gone better, said Kakashi disappointed on how things turned out. Asuma took a sip of his bottle of sake, it was nice and hot, just like he likes it. But the flavor was soured by the atmosphere. 5 years later, and damn, she's not the same person anymore. Asuma said, sadly over what had happened to the woman he saw as a little sister. Him and his girlfriend always had a strong bond with her, they were like sisters when she left her clan years ago, reasons he doesn't know. She lived with her girlfriend. Then there was the time when she smiled and laughed, it was the happiest I had ever seen her. Until that awful night, he remembers it vividly. The girl who was so sweet and kind, whose smile could melt anyone's heart, that wasn't a malicious person, became cold and detached. It was hard to even fathom that she was even the same person. He had known Hinata since she was a little girl. He had seen her grow up. Her upbringing was harsh, but prior to that night, Itachi Uchiha was the only bright spot. If he ever had a chance, he would kill him for breaking the heart of such a sweet girl. Hinata has closed herself off completely. I know what it's like, it's a coping mechanism used to deal with trauma. I understand Hinata well, I've been through it myself. I understand her better than anyone, Kakashi said, speaking from experience of the trauma that he had been through with the death of his sensei along with the horrific things he had seen in the war. Everyone dealt with trauma in different ways and Hinata dealt with it by cutting herself from others and being detached from others and being cold. He had not seen her smile genuinely in 5 years or laugh or even cry. She had kept her emotions bottled up. He was worried about her. Then her hatred for her clan is another thing that concerned him. She could be another Itachi if enough time passes, and that's terrified him more than anything. He's always had suspicions about Root being involved in the Uchiha clan massacre, but he cannot prove it. He cannot confront the Kakashi about it cause he cannot talk about it due to him not wanting to talk about his time in Root. We will have to see what Naruto will do for her. I mean, Hokage-sama has a good reason. I suppose having Hinata instead of me as the sensei of Team 7. Kakashi said with some optimism. I don't know. I mean, what? I've heard the way she treats Sasuke Uchiha. She doesn't say it out loud, but she shows her contempt for him every chance she gets. It's not Sasuke's fault that Itachi is his brother. He rarely even mentions the former prodigy of the Uchiha clan. It's not something that can be discussed openly, especially with Hinata. None of us can know for sure what their relationship was, but whatever happened changed her at her core. Every smile that she has ever given anyone in the past 5 years has been fake. She hasn't given a real smile to anyone since. Unless someone is very observant or not blind, they wouldn't notice the difference. Kakashi remarked. What's the likelihood of history repeating itself? Asuma asked, taking a cigarette out of his pouch and lighting it. You mean Naruto and Hinata becoming an item? Isn't that a little premature? Kakashi said. That's what they said about Minato and Kushina. Yeah, look what happened. Asuma smiled, remembering the uproar when Minato asked Kushina to marry him. Do you want to make a bet if they will become an item? Asked Asuma. Get real, this is hardly the same situation between Naruto and Hinata and Minato sensei and Kushina sensei, it is completely different. Kakashi replied. Really? As far as I remember, Kushina hated her red hair. It wasn't until Minato called it beautiful that she started to love it and started to fall in love with him. What an interesting relationship that was. Are you sure you want to disregard a chance to make easy money? If I turn out to be wrong, aren't you? Asuma asked with a mischievous grin. Fine, but you better be prepared to pay up. How much do you want to bet? He asked him mildly. Are you sure? This could empty your bank account. Asuma joked. Kakashi signed, as long as it's reasonable, I'm willing to bet. He had a feeling Kakashi would regret this later. 300,000 ryo, Asuma said in a mischievous tone because Kakashi's sweet L dropped. That's insane. I would literally have to do 2 to 3 A-rank missions, but then again, so would you. I'll do it, but you're going to regret it. Kakashi smiled on one of his rare occasions. I'll hold you to that, Asuma said as he finished smoking the cigarette he was holding. He was hoping his girlfriend could at least give some comfort to Hinata, even if it's just words. I hope you can bring back the kind and gentle Hinata that we all knew Naruto Uzumaki. He didn't know why, but he had a strong feeling that Naruto would be the key to bringing Hinata back to the girl she once was and restoring her faith, maybe, though that was wishful thinking. Naruto could do for Hinata that Kushina once did for Minato. With Hinata and Kurenai was escorting Hinata back to her apartment. They said nothing, she had no idea what to say. She knew how hard this day was for Hinata. The day that Itachi betrayed the village, the day he broke her heart into thousands of pieces. This woman's smile used to melt almost anyone's heart. By seeing it, it was like being in the presence of the sun itself. But in 5 years since, every smile that she's seen that comes from her face has been fake. She was colder and more ruthless on missions than she was before. It made her sad. She wishes she could just make the sorrow go away so she could forget that night. Itachi was once a part of her life, but that isn't possible because every memory with him is tainted. She understands this, and to top it all off, he was there for her when Hinata's own father said the most horrible thing any father could say to their child. She couldn't even imagine the words she heard from her own father. It was unimaginable, and the person who comforted her was there for her when she needed it. The man who ultimately betrayed her and broke her heart. She hated Itachi for what he did. Things were silent as she opened the door to her apartment. She helped carry Hinata to her couch and helped her sit down. She was going to leave before Hinata spoke softly. I'm sorry, Kurenai-san. I didn't mean to ruin your fun time with your boyfriend or Kakashi. She said with a tone of sadness. It's okay, Hinata. I understand completely. It still doesn't make it right. Hinata replied, looking up. Is there anything I can do for you? She asked the younger woman. I can't cry, no matter how hard I try. I can't laugh nor can I smile. I know what everyone says about me. I'm cold, heartless. I'm probably the ideal daughter. She was interrupted by Kurenai, not letting her finish. You don't need to do anything for that bastard's approval, Hinata. You don't have to be anything that you don't want to be. You know that, right? She asked the woman who had become a little sister to her. What good is being kind and gentle? Where has that ever gotten me? She asked, her voice on the verge of raising. She recoiled from the bitterness in Hinata's tone. She would give anything to make her smile again, to restore her faith. She feels completely helpless. I should go, Hinata. I don't want you to be late for your lesson tomorrow with your team. She left, and she noticed the apartment. She almost wanted to cry herself. The woman standing before her is a shell of who Hinata once was. She once believed in people, but now she's a bitter and angry woman. She has lost faith in people and has lost the ability to also love others. She would give anything for Hinata to smile and laugh again. If there's anyone that was willing to make that happen, she would support them 100%. Alright, thank you guys for watching part 2. Please make sure to like and subscribe and have a great day.